everyone, this is Kelly from The Truth in Story, and today is Lenormarch Day 20. And today, as you can see, our two cards are the letter and the man, or the gentleman, or the lovely hippie guitar player that comes with the vintage Lenormand. I quite love these people cards. So this is a pretty simple one because the gentleman is the man, right? So this is either the significator if you're reading for a man, or it is the significant other of the woman. And that could be a woman if you're reading for a same-sex couple. So, you don't necessarily have to change. If you have a deck that doesn't have extra cards, a lot of new decks nowadays do have extra cards. So whereas you might get a man and a lady, two men and two ladies, so that you can either put in another female for a same-sex couple or put in another man for a same-sex couple. They often will have extra cards, but many of the decks do not have extra cards, and that's okay. I mean, that's something that you would simply explain, and I've done it with many of my decks do not have extra cards, and I simply make note that because often it's not a question that I'm asking, so if it's not clear when somebody says that their partner or somebody that they're doing, I simply don't use pronouns and never try not to use assume pronouns, and just make note that whoever their significant other will be showing up as the lady, whether it's a female or not. This would be representing of the significant other, and so that works perfectly fine. I've never had anybody write back that that's sexist. I think that anybody who's getting a Lenormand, or not sexist, whatever that would be. Generally people who are getting Lenormand readings understand that it is a classic system, and so it doesn't have, same-sex relationships built into the system. And so I've never had any problem with that whatsoever. So I really wouldn't worry about that too much if you're reading for somebody. Now, obviously, if you know going into the reading that the person is with a same-sex partner, and you have a deck that does allow that, then that would, be a reason why I would particularly choose a deck that had the ability to do that. But sometimes I'm not clear about it, and so again, I feel very comfortable simply using any deck and making the note that, okay, I'm reading for a woman, and I know that she's talked to me about her partner or a long-term relationship, but hasn't necessarily said who the long-term relationship is with. It hasn't used any pronouns or anything to give that away, and so I will just simply make note that the gentleman will be standing in for the significant other, regardless of the sex of the significant other. And it's quite simple, so it's a very easy thing to get around. So I kind of wanted to throw, I guess, that in there as your tip of the day, dealing with significant others when it is not when the genders may not be being represented in the deck that you have. If it's something that's very important to you, for example, that either is the case for your own self, and or that you read, that you have a lot of clients that you read for, that would be the circumstance, then I think it's certainly worth investing in decks that have multiple ones, and there are quite a few. The Celtic Lenormand gives you multiple genders. I'm trying to think of some off the top of my head. The Celtic Lenormand definitely does give you multiple genders. Not the mystical. That's terrible. Off the top of my head, I can only think of the Celtic Lenormand, but I know that there's more that do it than just that one. I will have to get back to you on that. I don't want to start pulling all of because I don't keep the extra cards in their boxes because I don't want to accidentally mix them in. So I have them kind of separated off. Because again, for a lot of times when I'm reading Lenormand, I'm using one of my classic decks, and in those instances, I just explain it. And as I said, I have worked with same-sex couples, and I've never had anybody state as if and I'm quite upfront about it. I'm like, this is a classic deck. Obviously they weren't working those issues in, so this just stands in for it. It's no disrespect intended. And people have been perfectly fine with that. So I don't think it's something to stress over. Just understand that you pick the one that goes for your significant other, or for the person that you're reading for, and then pick. Now, I know that I did have a hint or a tip from Michael, I think is how he says his name. He is a German cartomancer, I guess you would call him, and he reads strictly like Lenormand and Kipper, like that's his thing. And he has said that he chooses for same-sex relationships. He chooses so for a gay male couple, he chooses the lady as a significator. That way he can look for the man for the other, and vice versa. If the significant other is a woman, he puts the woman in the place of the significant other and just uses the gentleman card as standing in for the significator. So, you know, that's something you can also do. I just tend to pick on the sex of the actual person I'm reading for and have the opposite simply stand in for that regardless of sex. So that's how I tend to approach that, and so that's something to think of. It probably isn't so much an issue, obviously, if you're reading for yourself, but there are people who read for other people, and so I wanted to point that out. So in terms of today, you know, our card, the gentleman, simply stands in for either the significator or the significant other of the significator. So that's what his meaning is. Now, there are keywords for the gentleman, such as being a leader and these kinds of things, but truthfully, I only read the gentleman as an actual significant other. If that's not somebody that's in the picture, or that's not a question that's coming up, it's just not something I guess I really look at. Although most people, like doing grand tableaus, do talk about relationships. So it may be a significant other they're looking to find, but there in some way that significant other comes into play. So letter is a pretty simple one as well. We're just talking about written communication. This is a message that is written. It's a document. It could be an actual, just a paper document. But unlike the bird, which could be verbal communication, or the rider, which is bringing messages from afar, this is an actual document. It could be an email. It could be a handwritten letter. It could be a package. It could be a document. But it's a message there. And it can just be message as well, but it's definitely more along the lines of a written piece of communication. So the question that I had for today was, if you could write a letter to one person, living, dead, or fictional, who would it be, and what would you have to say? Obviously excluding anything that would be very personal. And I'm sorry, but Isabel is deciding to go crazy and start running like a mad woman. Now, these are just photocopies because I happen to have them on my bulletin board. I love how Remco, or Mr. Lunar, it's okay, I think that I said Remco because he says it on the beginning of each of his videos. So, Mr. Lunar showed a picture of him and his grandfather, which I thought was so sweet in his today's video for Lenormarch. And I thought that was really neat, and I loved that he shared that. And so these are obviously the two people. Now, this is the thing, is it says, if you could, like, I actually think that you can. And I think that using days in which the veil is thinner, or using on birthdays or certain holidays, like, I think that's a wonderful time to sit down and write a letter to your loved one that has passed on, or to anybody that you want to write to. It doesn't, just because you write something doesn't mean you have to send it or have the ability to send it. I think that there's something healing about, I mean, you can just sit and have a conversation as well, but there's something about putting something in writing. And you could also write to the person and then put it and burn it and have it sort of go up, you know, the ashes kind of float upward. You know, there's kind of ritualized things that you can do, I think, that are quite wonderful. So this is a picture of my grandfather and I, and he passed away when I was, oh, I'm always bad about dates, but I would say I was like 8 or 9, and he is everything that I think of in terms of paternalness, grandfatherliness, that kind of male nurturing element. He was extremely nurturing. He always had a child in his hand. He was funny. I have I have many memories of him Halloween sticking his hands between the bushes with his false teeth clacking at us. He was German. He was full German, and he was tall. And in his pictures of him and my grandmother, he was tall and blonde and good looking, and just. Wonderful. I have nothing but fond memories of him. And yeah, so I would definitely, in times in which I'm troubled, in times in which I am stressed, in times, I think of my grandfather very often. He's a very calming energy to me, and always has been the small amount of time that I had him in my life alive, but as in my entire life, even though he's been gone for so long, he's always been a calming, soothing energy to me. When I felt unsafe, I always think of my grandfather and I always feel safer. And so certainly him. And then of course this is a picture of Michael. I had done a Instagram, and so I had printed these off because I wanted them black and white, and I wanted to put them with a tarot card or something. I can't remember, but now these are up on my bulletin board. And so obviously this is my son, and I can talk to him anytime, but I do like that idea of sitting down and writing a letter, because I have letters that he sent to me. I have Mother's Day cards. I have quite a few cards. I have an album that he wrote me message in, and so I have quite a few of those things that I can reread as messages from him. But it's nice to be able to write a letter, and it's something I think I'll be doing on Michael's birthday this Saturday. So I really didn't plan that when I put this question in there, but these things work out. So these are the two wonderful, and we are talking about men anyways, although you can pick anybody, but these are the two men that I would think of, young and old men, and I often have dreams of them together in a boat fishing in a beautiful, rich green lush kind of empressy feeling meadow with a lake in it, and lazy summer day, and both of them kind of comfortable together fishing, and I have quite a lot of dreams like that make me quite happy. So there you have it. Those are the two wonderful men that I would write to, and what I would say would be personal, but I don't think too hard to figure out some of the things, but there we have it. So today is a rather quick little Lenormarch, but I will see you all again tomorrow for day 21. Have a great night.